The Ghost Cat and Dog, the Fishing Trip Adventure. My father always used to say to go fishing early and the fish will be biting. And he was right. We usually returned back home with a bunch of fish, more times than often enough to last a few days and to share with our neighbor. At 4 a.m. on a cool Saturday, September morning, me, my father, and my friend from next door, Anthony, started out on our trip to the lake. It would take us about a half hour or so to get there. Arriving at the lake about 4:45 a.m., we drove around in the dark until finding a good secluded spot to set up camp, where we will be for the next 10 hours or so. Anthony and I bailed out of the car and started to run off into the darkness of the adjoining woods, when we were stopped by the sound of my father's stern voice. "Hold it! Before you boys run off, help me unload the car." We unloaded the car trunk. First came the flashlights, the ice chest with all the snacks for the day, portable radio, the lawn chairs, and the rod and reels, the regular fishing poles that Anthony would be using, and shrimp and worm bait. We set up everything. My father grabbed one of the lawn chairs, sat back, and started to add bait to his 2 rods as he always did, and asked if we were going to set up there or find us another spot. Anthony and I decided to find another spot. We both grabbed a sandwich my mother had made for the trip, put them in a bag along with the worm bait. Anthony carried the bag and a fishing pole. I grabbed a flashlight and the other fishing pole, and my father said, "Boys, be careful." I said, "We will, Dad." We were walking along the bank of the lake, looking for a good spot to set up. We found a great spot about 75 feet from where my dad had set up, with tree limbs overhead, so that when the sun eventually raised, we wouldn't be directly in the sunlight. Anthony and I baited our hooks, made sure our floats were connected correctly, and dropped our lines into the water. As the day went on, Anthony and I had not caught any fish. My father, on the other hand, had already caught 5 good-sized trout. At about 2 p.m., Anthony and I decided to give up fishing for a while and go exploring. So we carried our poles and bait back to where my father had set up. By this time, Dad was relaxing and drinking a beer and talking to another fisherman. I said, "Dad, we're going exploring." He said, "Okay, be careful. Watch yourselves." We both answered back, "We will." The brush around the lake was pretty thick, with trails all through it. As we were walking through the trails, we came upon a stream about 60 or so feet wide, running from some other part of the lake. We started playing a game of skipping rocks. After about 20 minutes of playing skipping rocks, Anthony spotted something floating in the stream. As it got closer, we could tell it was some type of furry animal. As it floated close to the bank of the stream, Anthony grabbed a long tree limb and tried to steer it closer to the bank. He managed to pull it close enough to the bank so that it was partially out of the water. Anthony kept picking away at the animal, turning it over, until we could tell it was a dead cat. The eerie thing about the cat is that its dead eyes were wide open. I'm not sure how long we had been gone. It was starting to get dark, and I knew my father would be ready to leave soon. So we decided to head back to camp. As we were walking back through the small trail, Anthony was walking behind me and said, "I heard something." I said, "We're on a creepy trail. It's getting dark. Of course you heard something," trying to make a joke to mask my sudden fear. We had both stopped and was looking back. I quickly said, "There's nothing back there. Let's keep going." We kept walking, a little further and faster, when we both heard something behind us and stopped suddenly, Looking back, behind us, there in the brush was two pair of glowing red eyes staring back at us. I shined my flashlight in the direction of the red eyes. It was the dead cat, and he had a friend. It was a dog just standing there. We took off running. After running about 10 feet, almost reaching camp, we looked back, and there was nothing chasing us. When we reached the camp, we told my father what had happened. He just laughed and said, "It was probably just some wild animal." Anthony and I just looked at each other. We knew better.